This is Jim Gray, excited to announce 3 new voices to the Let's Go team for the 2024 NFL season. 6-time Super Bowl champion head coach Bill Belichick.
I can't wait to talk about the stories I've lived and the epic moments I've experienced.
3-time NFL Pro Bowler from the Las Vegas Raiders, Max Crosby.
He is smothered and brought down, Max Crosby.
And Hall of Fame sports writer Peter King. Catch Let's Go every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on Mad Dog Sports Radio and on the all-new Sirius XM app.
Don't waste valuable time managing playlists, downloading, or sifting through commercials when you could be zoning out, rocking out, or just kicking back to the music you love. Visit SiriusXM.com/go to quickly sign up online and activate your radio. SiriusXM offers commercial-free music from nearly every genre at the touch of a button. Select your favorite channels, set your presets, and let SiriusXM's music experts handle the rest. Subscribe now and activate your radio. Visit SiriusXM.com/go to sign up online quickly or call 844-711-8800 now.
There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, let's see. You gotta get
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you as heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. License number 018148688.
Rondo Deportes, Bonjour, Vidi Vidi Vici. Let's get ready to rumble. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to me and people who love the universe. And that would include you. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood on a beautiful September the 11th, 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard in the world. You go by and test drive yours, tell them Big C sent you, if that makes sense to you. I gotta say today, show's a little bit different today because I want to pay homage to 9/11 and what happened 23 years ago when our nation was attacked, and obviously it brought our country together through a lot of pain, joy, pain, sunshine, and rain. Also paying homage to the late, great Frankie Beverly, who passed away. And there's a lot of things to be grateful for in this country, especially as we go through joy, pain, sunshine, and rain. And I am a sports show, but I also talk about things that are real in life. I'm going to have 2 special guests on today talking about traces of the trade, but I want to just take the time to pay a moment of silence for what happened to our great country on September 11th. I never want to forget it. Thank you for your moment of silence with Big C Sports Podcast. There's so many times in life that we take things for granted, like freedom. We take freedom for granted at times because we have our own challenges in life. And I just want to say, for everyone that's part of this great country, it's joy, pain, sunshine, and rain. It's not great all the time. It's not bad all the time. But it is what we call the United States of America. And I love what I do with the Big C Sports Podcast. I don't even know if what I do would be possible in other countries. I don't take for granted that I have a chance to do some things that make my heart happy. And I love bringing that to you. I want to say with the Big C Sports Podcast, I love what I do with this program. Today's show's a little bit different. I'm going to have some special guests. But I just wanted to take that moment of silence for 9/11. There are times when we just got to be more grateful for what we do in this great country. I want to say I'm one beautiful, intelligent black man coming to you worldwide. I always produce the show. I direct the topics. I broadcast all the shows. I do all the platforms that are provided by the agency. We should all use more laughter in our lives, especially a day like today. We could all use more laughter. Nothing's wrong with laughter. We all need that. And then the commercials are done. The stats are provided. I even do the storytelling. And then I do the play-by-play. Today I'm going to do Big C's Major League Baseball Power Rankings. Runners on first and third. The count's full. The pitch. Curveball. Slug on. Hit deep. Right field. Back to the wall. Home run. Say hello to my little friend. I love saying the girls love the long ball and men love to hit deep. I love baseball. I've been playing it since I was a little boy. And I love talking about that. I have Big C's Major League Baseball Power Rankings coming up today's show. But then the show's uploaded to 29 podcast applications out of New York City and streaming on 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and also Amazon Fire TV. What I also want to say is I never missed a show since doing Big C Sports back in the day at Salem Media. And now we have people who miss practice. I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about people who miss practice. I always love paying homage to the great Allen Iverson. So many things I'm grateful for. And one of those things that I'm really grateful for is what I do with Big C Sports Podcast. I always pay homage to the military. I know people talk about military service, and we're grateful to our service, and we're grateful for our branches of military that keep us safe all over the world. I do want to say people go through trauma. I love paying homage to the Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. If you know anybody going through issues, pick up the phone, call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And when you do, you want to give it some praise, because we all need somebody to lean on. And it's always nice when somebody's leaning back. I want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight Effect TV for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like in Genesis 1:3, where God said, reparations now, reparations forever. Big C, that's not what it said. He said, let there be light. Well, then God said, let there be light. I want to shine light on the world, and I love doing that with Big C Sports Podcast. I have so many things that I'm very excited about, and I want to make sure that I do my part and paying homage to what I do with Big C Sports Podcast. Before I bring on my special guest, I want to say we have a guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth for Resource Development Consulting, Inc., in conjunction with the law office of Scott Thibodeau, attorney at law, and Attorney George Jones, Esquire, The Missing Link, Long-Term Care Solutions by the book. Over 3 decades of experience helping seniors get their benefits. Medicare and You. Taking Care of Tomorrow in California is called Medi-Cal, and other parts of the country is called Medicaid. I'm not done yet. We have a promise to you. Your family and spouse, they can avoid the spend down for nursing home costs. You can find out your options, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. I promise to you, specialized to navigate and maximize long-term care benefits, protection of your assets without a spend down. All paperwork and communication with all government agencies are handled by a staff of entitlement specialists. We have ongoing consulting to provide updates as necessary. Benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, prescription medications, medical equipment costs, and more. Protection of your assets. Is that Aflac? No, Aflac's the duck. That's gap insurance. Asset protection is what you need to have if you're a business owner, especially. It protects your assets, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family, avoiding the nightmare of debt brought by the government's estate recovery program called probate, where they can take between 10 to 40% of your assets. And if you don't have a will and a trust, the probate court, they will have a will for you, and you will not like it. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. A one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. That's important. I'm not done yet. Our trust protect insurance coverage required by law, general liability, workers' compensation, lawyers specializing in living trust, Medicaid or Medi-Cal planning for long-term care, avoid probate, life insurance policies, veterans benefits, aid and attendance. We have pre-planning and avoid the look-back period. There is no look-back period in California. A trust protects your fixed assets. What are fixed assets, Big C? I'm glad you asked. Your bank account, your checking account, savings account, money market account, certificates of deposit, life insurance with the cash values. Also, your fixed index annuities. What about variable assets? I'm glad you asked, because the trust also protects your variable assets, your real estate, your qualified money, IRAs, 401ks, and other investments. Let's say, for example, avoid capital gains. Let's say you buy a house for $100,000. Where can I find that house, Big C? Well, they're out there. And let's say in 1 year that house appreciates to $1 million. Well, that's a $900,000 capital gains, and some brokers tell you that in order to get the sale. Well, you can avoid that with a trust. Attention business owners over 3 decades of experience. You got to find out your other options to protect what your insurance does not cover. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. We also have some great endorsements. You know, endorsements are important. I have some endorsements too. I got to tell you who my endorsements happen to be. I have the late James Gomez, who advised 4 California governors in change for nursing homes in California. He served on Golden One's board of directors 21 years. We also have the late Robert Carlson, who was the top legal counsel for CalPERS. He endorsed the RDC team. And I'm proud to say that they have a great response when it came to why our products are so good for you. 800-772-8624. And I'm also the Charlton Curry, co-chair of the National Black Wall Street Project, also business development consultant with the RDC team, also owner of Big C Sports Podcast Corporation. I endorse the RDC team. We have Double O. She's the payout committee for the National Black Wall Street Project, also consultant with the RDC team, has her own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat. She endorses the RDC team. As I mentioned, Ray De La Cruz, CEO over 34 years and counting with the RDC team. We have Alice De La Cruz, also works with veterans. We have Cheryl Brown. She's the chair of the California Commission on Aging. She endorses the RDC team. If we can, you can too. We also have Leon Woods, works with many of the top lobbyists in California. You got to give that some praise. I say give it praise, praise, praise. I'm going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And when I come back, you don't want to miss it. I'm going to talk to you about traces of the trade. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as a Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 29 podcast applications all over the universe and streaming on 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. I have the pleasure of having 2 wonderful guests on today's show. But before we even start that, I want to take the time to take a moment of silence for the victims of 9/11 in this great country. All right, thank you for that. I know 9/11 was just a moment in our history that we'll never forget. But I do want to say I have the special privilege of having Constance Perry and also Dain Perry, and they come from the East Coast, and I got to get it right out of the way. I'm on the West Coast. Now, I know that Dain is a Boston fan. I believe Constance as well, too. So they love the Patriots, and I love the Raiders. They did such a good job on beating the Raiders in the Tuck game. They made the Raiders even move to Las Vegas. Does that make any sense to you guys? That's not fair?
That is totally fair. Totally fair.
They never got over the tuck rule. They decided to tuck their pants and tuck their head between their tail and move down to Vegas. But I want to just edify you two. Constance, we'll go ladies first. Constance Perry was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. And for more than 20 years, she managed, designed, and implemented programs for at-risk youth and adults in the municipal, state, and national level. Constance also developed expertise in technical assistance, staff training, community planning, and evaluation through her association. Is it Brandeis University?
Brandeis
University. Thank you very much. Yeah. At the Center for Youth and Communities of the Heller Center. I really do appreciate having the chance to speak to you both. You also designed and implemented a series of technical assistance and training services to support local capacity buildings. Can you talk more about that? Your thoughts?
Well, I worked with communities all around the country and helping them to do a more effective job and how they provided services to youth and young adults primarily on the local level, partnering with businesses, nonprofit agencies, and the community in general.
Yes, that's wonderful. And also for 12 years, self-employed national consultant specializing in training, facilitation, and on-site consultation to community organizations, provided services to their residents, extensive national experience conducting case management training, and technical assistance to federal guarantees and community-based organizations. We could go on and on and on, but you also, in addition, you worked on projects funded by the United States Department of Labor, Education,
That's
Housing,
right.
and Urban Development, and Juvenile Justice. So I want to thank you for all of the things that you've done to contribute to our society. And I don't want to make Dain feel bad, but going up against your resume, we're just financial people. Is that okay, Dain, if I edify you two as well? Your thoughts?
Sure.
So Dain grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, recently retired after a 30-year career as a financial representative with the Northwestern Mutual Financial Network in Boston, and he's a past president of the Boston Estate Planning Council, was named Boston Estate Planner of the Year in 1999. Prior to joining him, then he was deputy director of the Massachusetts Council on Crime and Correction, and also acting director of the Crime and Justice Foundation, both private nonprofit community groups which promoted reform in the criminal justice system. Where do you get such passion for helping people as well as being in the financial planning industry? Your thoughts?
Well, I got into the financial planning industry because I thought that as I was working to earn an income,
Yes.
I would also have the time to continue to do the volunteer work that I had done.
Yes. Well, obviously,
So,
go right ahead, sir. Go right ahead, please.
yeah, it was that combination that led me into the financial services industry.
Yes. Well, also prior to joining them, you worked with the Marsh and McLennan, a large international insurance brokerage in Boston, New York, and Caracas, Venezuela, and served as insurance manager of the Massachusetts Hospital Association. Also a past president of the Boston JCs, where you played a leadership role in opening membership in the all-male organization to women, and served several years on the Professional Advisory Committee of the Boston Foundation. Also attended United States Naval Academy. Thank you for your service. In 1978, you created the Massachusetts Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Foundation, which annually hosts a leadership seminar for high school sophomores. Where do you get such passion for reaching out to young people? Your thoughts?
It just comes naturally. They and I just get along, and even though I'm 80 years old now, I still seem to be able to not only have the passion, but also have the ability to relate to young kids.
Wow, well, that's very, very impressive. Really do appreciate you. Now, I know we talked about it before, but you're an avid sports fan, I believe. And now I know that being from Boston, you're probably a Yankee fan, or would I be wrong about that?
Oh, yeah.
And you probably love the New York Knicks more than the Boston Celtics. Would that be fair enough?
But this show is over.
I made a mistake one time. I was actually in Boston, and I had a Yankee hat, and people said, "Are you out of your mind?" I'm like, out of my mind for what? You can't wear that hat in this town. So you guys are a little bit more passionate about your sports. So let me ask you, too. Now, Constance, are you as avid of a sports fan as Dain? Your thoughts?
I was more of a Boston Celtics fan. I support the local team.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we can't persuade you to becoming a Golden State Warrior or Sacramento King fan anytime soon?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So you will not be moving to Vegas to join the Raiders. I understand that.
Yep.
So I want to ask you before we get into the traces of the trade, I want to ask, how did you two meet?
You got to be very careful of those church committee meetings.
And
we met at a committee meeting at Trinity Church in Boston.
Oh, okay. Well, wonderful. I do appreciate, and I want to just make sure, Constance, would you confirm that story or deny that story?
Oh, I confirm it. I confirm it.
Now that we're clear on that, I do want to say thank you for joining Big C Sports today to talk about something that's really important. In California, I'm part of a committee that's focused on helping get reparations to come to the top of the mind for descendants of chattel slavery, just like the Just Act for descendants of Holocaust and also Japanese Americans that receive reparations for their internment camps here in California. You're doing something that's very remarkable. And the traces of the trade, I want to ask you about that. It's a voyage of realization and reconciliation, which is what reparations are all about. It's about repair. So a documentary film, it unearths the hidden legacy of slavery in the United States. And it traces the trade, a story from the deep north. People think of slavery as the deep south. But A Story from the Deep North was one of the few documentaries chosen from 953 submissions to be shown at the Sundance Film Festival January 2008. Constance, can you go first? Tell me about how that came together and what does it mean to be a part of that, your thoughts?
Well, I will leave it to Dain to get the first part of that, and then I will tell you what it's been like to be involved.
Dain, go right ahead, please.
A cousin put together 9 other cousins, and we went on a 3-week journey in the summer of 2001 to Bristol, Rhode Island, which was the center of the U.S. slave trade, to Ghana in West Africa, to Cuba, where the family owned 5 plantations, and back to Bristol, to take a look at what some of our ancestors had done. They had been America's foremost slave traders. They had brought more kidnapped Africans to the Western Hemisphere than any other family in American history. So the 10 of us, with 2 film crews, spent 3 weeks examining that history in New England, in Africa, and in Cuba, and then back to New England again.
And what it has meant to me, initially I thought that I really didn't need to be involved in the screenings of the documentary film, because this was Dain's family, this was Dain's story,
yes,
not my story. And I am a descendant of people who were enslaved. And so as an African American, I thought this is a white family story. But as I learned more, and as I attended a couple of the earlier screenings that Dain did, maybe the first couple,
yes,
I realized that it's important. This is a story that affects all of us. If you live in the United States, regardless of how long you've been here, how you arrived here, or the color of your skin, we carry that history in us in one way or another, or we are affected by it. And so the more that we understand about the slave trade, how it happened, and the impact that it has today, perhaps it will help us to address the racism that still exists.
Yes, that is very interesting. I'm so honored to have someone speak so poignantly about race in the United States, and oftentimes talking to the great Constance and Dain Perry. When people talk about race, they act as if it's something that we should never talk about in public. And
that's right.
And I think, and that's why I commend both of you for talking about this. It should be as easy as saying, I'm sorry. How do we fix what happened in the past? I think the Just Act, when the United States Department of Justice worked with the German government to pay reparations to descendants of Holocaust, the blueprint is already there. I know even in Massachusetts, they're doing a study on reparations. We don't need another study. Just copy the Just Act. Does that make sense to you, both of you? Ladies first, please.
Well, we're both members of the Episcopal Church in the Diocese of Massachusetts.
Yes.
And the Diocese of Massachusetts has, over the past 4 years, has been working to put together a reparations program.
Yes.
That will be implemented in the Episcopal Church throughout our diocese. So it's happening throughout the country, and not just at the government level, the local level,
yes,
but in churches as well, various denominations, and the Episcopal Church is very involved in that.
And several other Episcopal dioceses are doing the same thing.
Yes. I want to ask both of you, being a sports guy, obviously there is, of course, you're back in the Massachusetts area. Of course, there's Boston Celtics, Boston Bruins, of course, New England Patriots, and the Boston Red Sox. And when you think about sports, everyone galvanizes around sports. But churches are segregated. Now, how does that make sense when the churches are segregated, for the most part, particularly speaking, but around a sports team, people of all different colors and faiths and religions can congregate around a sports team? How has the church missed what sports has done to bring people together? Your thoughts. Ladies first, please.
Well, it's going to be... I got a nudge to take that one first.
Okay, go right ahead.
I would disagree with you.
Okay.
When I go to a Red Sox game, or I go to a Celtics game, or a Patriots game, it's 90% plus white.
Yes.
So I don't think that we have the diversity, and at least in the fans who attend the games.
Correct.
In terms of people who watch and listen at home,
yes,
absolutely. I think the diversity is very much there, but not at the ball games themselves.
Yes, that may be an economic reason that they're not together at a ball game, but maybe in a sports bar, people will go to the same sports bar, but they won't go to the same church, if that makes sense. I remember the great late Bill Russell, who grew up in the Bay Area and ended up being maybe one of the greatest Boston Celtics of all time. They give away the Bill Russell Trophy. And he mentioned when he played for the Celtics back in the day, there were times when he did not have that green jersey on, then he was seen as with such enmity from some of the communities in Boston that maybe you both can see, because as a Caucasian man and African-American woman, you may hear things, Dain, in a mostly Caucasian setting that people would not say in a public setting. Would that make sense to you, your thoughts?
Absolutely. It happens all the time. One of the reasons Traces of the Trade was created,
yes,
there were really two. One was to tell the true history of the slave trade and slavery in the U.S.
Yes.
New England was the center of the U.S. slave trade, and slavery was legal in Massachusetts for over 200 years.
Wow.
Very few people know that.
Yes.
The other reason was to deepen the national conversation on race.
Yes.
And Constance and I, over the last 22 years, have taken the film, shown the film to audiences, and facilitated conversations on race and reconciliation almost 600 times all across the country. And some of the other cousins who were in the film are doing or have done the same thing, or written books.
Yes.
And so our whole purpose in the creation of the film was to deepen the national conversation on race. White folks don't know what they don't know when it comes to race and racism.
Yes.
And we need to learn. We need to listen to people of color. And this is not just a black-white issue, but it's people of color.
Yes.
White folks need to learn to people of color, listen to them in terms of what their life experiences are, because we don't understand what those life experiences are.
So during those gatherings, we call them screenings.
Yes.
Sometimes the audience is all white. Sometimes it's a broad mixture of from diverse groups, as Dain said. It's not just African Americans.
Yes.
And people are invited to share their stories and the impact that, if you're a person of color, the impact that some of the experiences that you have had on your life.
Yes.
People who are white are also affected. Relationships, friendships that began in elementary school, we hear so often.
Yes.
That end as the children get older, and society and parents tell them, you can't be together, you can't go to parties together, you can't. And so this is a way to engage people in a conversation that's difficult to have, but is important to have.
Talking to the great
Charles,
go right ahead, please.
Bring this back to a sports context.
Yes.
We have done this at the screenings with a total audience in those almost 600 screenings.
Yes.
Which would be enough to fill Fenway Park.
Wow. That's very educational to hear that. Me, as an African-American man, growing up in this country, I was always taught I can do anything I want to do. And even if that seems naive, because I understand there's a book called The New Jim Crow. Jim Crow's not over, it's just morphed
That's
into
right.
a different form. And the New Jim Crow is something that everyone, in my opinion, should read, and by Michelle Alexander. That was told to me by Carolyn Wyatt, who's a financial planner and a friend of mine. But I want to just say this because I want to get your thoughts too, Constance. As you mentioned also, Dain, nearly 600 screenings, conversations in over 200 cities across the towns and country, and even overseas in Ghana and Australia. And what I want to ask you, Constance, as an African-American woman, we oftentimes see the smiling face. The smiling faces can sometimes tell lies. We just lost the great Frankie Beverly. He had a song called Joy, Pain, Sunshine, and Rain. Have you ever felt, Constance, that need to have that phony smile when you feel pain, but you got to pretend you're having joy in order to keep people feeling like I'm safe and I'm not going to hurt you, even though as African Americans, we've been the brunt of a lot of pain and enmity. Does that make sense to you, your thoughts?
It certainly does. And it certainly does. Now, one of the things that advantages that I've had, thank goodness to my grandmother who raised me, is one of the things that she said is wherever you are,
yes,
wherever you are is where you belong. So if I want to be someplace and I'm the only person of color in the room, and it's where I want to be,
yes,
and if other people have a problem with my being there, that's not my problem, that's theirs.
Yes.
And so I was taught to hold my head up, my shoulders back, and with confidence and strength, go about my business. but absolutely, that dynamic happens every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
This is Big C Sports talking with the great Constance and Dain Perry from the East Coast. By the time this interview's over, and it's gone by so fast, I'm going to see if I can make one more pitch to get Dain to become a Raider fan. He says I don't have a. He says
it didn't happen.
He says I have a better chance at landing on the moon with my feet.
I think so.
No.
But
that's not true. We can put men on the moon.
Just win, baby. The autumn wind was a Raider, says the great late Al Davis. But I do want to say this to you also. Really appreciate this conversation talking to the great Constance Perry and Dain Perry. As an African-American man, I've grown up around all kind of people, different cultures. And when I realized at a young age that some of my Caucasian friends, they really liked playing with me, whether it's sports or even going to school, just being friends. But as we got older, there was a movie called Roots by the late Alex Haley. And some of my same white friends, when they saw Roots for the first time, they ceased being friends. And I think that came from their parents feeling whatever, guilt or whatever it was. But I've been mostly disappointed when it comes to dealing with white society. There are a lot of people that will talk about you behind your back, but they will smile on your face. And there are times I've been privileged to be around people that I thought really loved me. I mean, loved me. Only to realize that sometimes if they didn't know I was in the room, I was being called the N-word, the uppity N-word, and the whatever derogatory thing. And oftentimes I would hear that and not say anything but just listen to who they really were. But one time it was noticed by a friend of mine who was a white guy. He said something about a black man that was taking out his trash cans. And he said, "Look at that stupid N-word in the trash." And he looked around and saw me and said, "Oops, I didn't know you were there." And that's how he talks anyway, because his parents were ignorant. And I'm so proud of you, Constance, for having that same story. And for you, Dain, for being a Caucasian person and speaking truth to race issues. We all love Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but we do know that it's going to take honest dialogue. And that's why I so appreciate what you guys are doing with the traces of the trade. People don't know how slavery had a large impact in the North. So before we close, we just had the presidential debate last night with Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, and former President Donald Trump. They said nothing about reparations, which is what the Just Act did for descendants of Holocaust. They said nothing about reparations, which is what Japanese Americans got after internment. But if you could speak to President or former President Donald Trump, or maybe future President Kamala Harris, what would you say to them about approaching this issue the same way we got to cut out cancer? You can't pretend that cancer does not exist in order to treat it. Does that make sense to you? Ladies first, your thoughts?
Well, I really think that I would not be looking to government to address, well, let me back up. I think in terms of reparations, I think it does involve government. It should involve government.
Yes.
But I also think that there's a lot of learning that needs to happen with people who are just everyday people.
Yes.
With everyday people.
Yes.
And because there's a lot, as Dain said, there's a lot that people don't know.
Yes.
We all, regardless of race, we all carry feelings. One of the things that we do is during the screening, we invite people after the film to share a feeling word.
Yes, yes.
And there is grief and pain and loss and a whole range of emotions that you not only hear expressed from people of color,
yes,
but also people who are white.
Yes.
And so I think that I think that the way that Vice President Harris has led her life, I think that her life has taken her into where she has interacted with and has an interracial family.
Yes.
And so I think that she would be receptive
Yes.
to engaging in conversation. I think she's got a lot of other things on her plate right now that
Yes.
need more attention. But it's a movement.
Yes.
I never believed that reparations would happen in this country. I really didn't. And it is happening. And
Yes.
it's happening at the local level.
Yes.
Some states are involved, foundations, and places of worship.
Yes.
And so, I'll stop there.
Well, you know what? Very eloquently said. I love the way I appreciate the manner and the spirit as a thinking person. I can feel you thinking as you were talking. Dain, your thoughts, what would you say if you were president of the United States about tackling this cancer that we have? We can't pretend it doesn't exist in order to cut it out. Your thoughts?
I refer to it as a cancer also, a cancer that continues to eat away at the very soul of America. White folks don't understand the issues. Slavery resulted for the descendants of people who enslaved other people, resulted in multi-generational wealth.
Yes.
But the descendants of the people who were enslaved, it resulted in multi-generational poverty and multi-generational trauma. And white folks don't know that history. And until white folks understand that history,
yes,
they're not going to see, I don't think, a reason why reparations should be made. Because they see a lot of black folks today, not as many as it should be, but a lot of black folks doing very well.
Yeah.
But they don't understand the deep pain and the deep trauma that continues to exist in the families and the communities of the descendants of slaves. And so there's a lot of education that needs to go on. Well, you mentioned one book. I'd like to mention one also.
Yes.
It's called Waking Up White by Debbie Irving. Waking Up White by Debbie Irving. And I consider it a racism 101 course.
Yes.
It's a superb book for white people to pick up and read. It's an easy read, but it will stun people as they read through it in terms of what they learn.
And I would add, in terms of what Dain just said, that it's important. We think that the role that we play, and we call it's a ministry. This isn't our job.
Yeah.
It's our ministry.
Yes.
Is to gather people together, and we're invited. We don't do any advertising. We're invited to go to schools or places of worship, businesses, you name it, any venue where people gather. And that we believe that a way to educate people and to create a safe and brave space where people can come watch a film and then share their feelings, having been on the journey with Dain and his cousins in the film, and share a little vignette or two about their own life as they think about race and racism. And that if we can get the more people we can get to engage in conversations like that, we're planting seeds. And those seeds have in various places have taken root.
Yes.
And are flowering, and some change is happening. It's slow.
Yes.
But as I said, the idea that reparations is happening in the United States of America for African Americans is not something that I ever expected to happen.
Well,
and it is.
I agree. As people become more well-read and knowledgeable, I think Dr. Leakey and Gregory Mendel opined that all life came from Africa. We're all just melanated people with different 9 series DNA. And I want to say this before we close. I could talk to you forever. And again, the purpose for this call, I was told it was to see if I could convert Dain and Constance to becoming Raider fans, but then it turned into a traces of the trade. When they said traces of the trade, I thought we were going to trade teams. but now I'm in all seriousness, I'm so grateful for this conversation, because being a person that's steeped in sports, also religion and law, I have friends that are part of the California State Legislature. I know Senator Stephen Bradford here in California. I've had many people from the California Reparations Task Force on my program. Attorney Camila Moore, who's the chair. Amos Brown, who did the benediction at the Democratic National Convention. He's been on my program. And some wonderful people have come into my life. And you two are the next wave of that. And I'm so grateful to have your time. In the next maybe 2 minutes, if we can, I love what you're doing with Traces of the Trade. And I want to get both of your calling, your clarion call to society would be what? Ladies first, please, your thoughts.
Oh, dear. I just, that we all have stories to share as we think about our life and race and racism. And it's important that we create opportunities and safe and brave spaces to do that, because the more we learn, the more I think we learn that we have more in common than we think.
That's very well said. Dain, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but she just performed like Tom Brady. So that means she won the championship many, many times in Boston. Now I'm going to have you have all that pressure of coming on and then talking about things that you think would be the clarion call for people after they see Traces of the Trade. Your thoughts?
I agree with Constance. What we urge people seeing Traces of the Trade to do is to use that as an opportunity to then go forward and not try to start doing the work of, well, I've got to change things myself. What can I do?
Yes.
But rather educate themselves on the issue. Read books. See movies. There are some superb movies out there.
Yes.
That tell the story of particularly African Americans, but also other people of color, and the struggles that they have had and why they have had them. And one very quick example.
Yes.
The GI Bill after World War II.
Yep.
Raised up a huge middle class of white people.
Yes.
The white GIs got access to funds to go to college, to start a business, to buy a home. And most of the black GIs did not have access to those funds because of the way the bill was written. If those GIs had had access to get into the middle class shortly after World War II, America would be a very different place today.
That's very well said.
White folks don't know that history, and we need to know the history. We need to know what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. We need to know that there was an average of one lynching a week between 1875 and 1950. White folks don't know that. Most black folks do. And we need to and then we need to talk about this hard history.
Yes.
That wealth gap that Dain has talked about with regard to the GI Bill, the gap has improved over the years for African Americans.
Yes.
But there's still a gap. And I want to go back to the whole notion of reparations.
Yes.
Reparations can be used as a way to correct and repair those gaps in terms of wealth, education, house, all of those systems that has put African Americans behind in so many ways.
You know, I'm really honored to have both of you, and I'll let you finish too in a moment, Dain. But also, you mentioned the Homestead Act of 1863 that gave white American men 160 acres of land, and even white Europeans, they denied African Americans. And imagine, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, according to Einstein. Imagine if you're given 160 acres of land. You can sell that land, you can farm that land, you can build on that land, you can do anything, but the appreciation is what creates wealth, and that's something that's called reparations. It's already happened for white Americans. It's never happened for African Americans. Your thoughts, Dain? Go right ahead, please.
That's right.
That's right.
And if the freed slaves had been able to go to the Midwest and get land that people from Europe were getting for free, again, the whole world would be different here.
It would
and
be
there
different.
are many, many instances of that. Many instances. I want to say one quick thing about reparations.
Yes, please.
Constance used the word repair. The word reparations has been so twisted by certain people in this country, and by the media, by the press, that it's completely misunderstood. Reparations should not, at least in my mind, be a check written to an individual, but rather it should be an effort to level the playing field and give change, make a systemic change in America to how things are done.
There's a lot of things, and we'll have to close with that. I have about a minute left. I do believe in money. I believe in land. I believe in health and education. Everything that was not given, I believe it should be granted. Even when Lincoln freed the slaves in the Emancipation Proclamation, he gave reparations in the form of cash to white slave owners. And so they've already received the money. This conversation is such a powerful conversation. I actually love this conversation. And because both of you have done such a great job, I'm no longer going to try to recruit you to become a Raider fan or a Golden State Warrior fan, because I think you're tied to Boston more than coming to the West Coast. But what I would take, what I would take from you guys is, I just want to say, may God bless your spirit and your effort to have honest dialogue. That's a lot more important than a lot of things that we hear on media today. I want to thank you for joining Big C Sports Podcast. I hope I see you down the road. I want to thank the great Marilyn White for even the introduction, and I wish you two nothing but the best. But I do want to give you 30 seconds each to close, and we will go this time because I want to end with the Constance. Dain, you first, 30 seconds. Anything you want to say, please.
Well, pay attention to the Red Sox. They're gonna turn things around.
Spike, you're out of there. Go right ahead, please.
and thank you for the work you're doing in California with reparations. It's so critical that work be done.
Thank you so much.
And we don't need to be afraid of each other.
No.
As soon as we get to know each other, the walls of fear fall down, and we can become friends.
I believe that. I believe that very much. So sometime you want to go where everybody knows your name. I think there was a restaurant in Boston, fictional, maybe called Cheers, but I think it was a real restaurant where everybody knows your name. And I think
it is.
That's right.
Is there? Okay, wonderful. And I thank you for that also, Dain. In a matter of time, I want to bring on the closer. I know the Red Sox are on the mound. The score is 7-6. The bases are loaded. and the Yankees are at the plate, so they bring in the closer by the name of Constance Perry. Constance, your turn. don't be nervous.
I thank you for this. I thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation. And one of the places in the nation that some of us in Massachusetts have been watching is what's going on in California.
Yes.
So with regard to reparations. So keep up the good work.
Thank you both. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. This is a Big C Sports talking to the great Dain and Constance Perry. She is the closer, and just so you know, the Red Sox struck out the Yankees and they won, okay, because of her pitching. So I appreciate you both.
All right. Sounds good.
You guys have a super fantastic day, okay? Thank you so much for being on Big C Sports Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Okay. You guys have a great day. So this is what's called the Big C Sports Podcast. I really do appreciate talking to the great Dain and Constance Perry. If you haven't heard, it's called Traces of the Trade. You got to be a part of that Traces of the Trade. Before I close out today, I'll do Big C's Major League Baseball Power Rankings tomorrow, but I want to play a great speaker that you probably heard before. Listen with your own eyes and ears.
Martin Luther King, we had a conversation a couple days ago about handouts and how these right-wing memes, these Republican memes, have infiltrated the Democratic debate to suggest that, ending welfare as we know it, all those kind of things are somehow, great and noble things, when we're not dealing with the underlying problem, which is that there's no economic opportunity there because of insane trade policies and because of Reaganomics. And Martin Luther King spoke to this. Jim and Shane, this is clip number 4. Martin Luther King spoke to this sometime back in the early 60s. And I thought this was a really interesting quote. Here he is.
The problem. At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
From his speech, The Two Nations of Black America, and it's absolutely brilliant. And the next time some white person talks about, well, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and my family did too, especially the Bundy boys. I mean, here's Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., talking about how basically whites stole the West from the Indians with the complete, and didn't just steal it. I mean, murdered them he murdered the Indians in the process, and did not give any of these benefits to African Americans for 100 years in this country. It's a strong case for reparations or some variation on it, for rebuilding our cities, for doing right after having done wrong for so many centuries. It is a very, very strong case for that.
All right, we are back from the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Sports Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 29 podcast applications all over the universe. It's streaming on 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. I'm going to go extra innings on today's show. I want to make sure, tell everyone you know, from sea to shining sea, you got to hear about Constance and Dain Perry. It's an important project that they're focused on. It's called Traces of the Trade, a voice of realization and reconciliation. I'm so grateful for the conversation I just had with them. I want to do what I always do on every Big C Sports podcast. I want to give praise to the California Reparations Task Force. They have one in Boston also. I want to thank the inimitable Dr. Shirley Weber, the Secretary of the State of California. I love giving her praise. She worked with California Governor Gavin Newsom to put together a task force. And then I want to thank the chair, Camila Moore. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. She's also appeared on Big C Sports Podcast. I want to give praise to Dr. Amos C. Brown, the vice chair, who's also appeared on Big C Sports Podcast. He also gave the benediction at the Democratic National Convention. I want to give him praise. I want to give praise to California Senator Stephen Bradford. He's a lot like Moses in Exodus 10, where God told Moses, he said, go down into Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses said to God, well, who do I tell him sent me? And God said, tell him I am sent you. He went down and did his thing. Well, rumor has it Senator Bradford was praying on his knees to God. He said, God, how do I get reparations passed in California? He said, go down to the state capitol and tell them I said, pass reparations. Senate Bill 1331, Senate Bill 1403, and Senate Bill 1050. And Senator Bradford said, well, God, who do I tell him sent me? And rumor has it, God said, he said, tell him I am sent you. And he got it passed 56-0 before shenanigans happened with Senate Bill 1331 and 1403. But we're not going to give up. It's not over yet. I love giving Senator Bradford praise. I met him many times in his office and at Reparations Task Force. I want to give praise to Council Member Monica Montgomery Stepp. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I have a little bit of pause when it comes to Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer. He's also appeared on Big C Sports Podcast. But there's a lot of things he has to answer to because he was laughing when the bills were obstructed. And I was at the state capitol for 14 hours that day. And that's not right, Mr. Jones Sawyer. I want to give praise to Dr. Shell Grill. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Attorney Lisa Holder. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. She's a champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to give praise to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, also professor at California Berkeley. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Attorney Donald K. Tamaki. He's part of the California Reparations Task Force. I want to give him praise. I said, give him all praise. Give him all praise, praise, praise. That's my story. And I'm sticking with it. I love paying homage to my beautiful family legacy. On my mother's side, my great-grandparents, Mama and Pop, they were beautiful, loving, kind people. And Pop was a former military man and former Negro League baseball player. And my great-grandmother called her Mama a great cook, always making sure we had lots of love in the family and lots of food in the belly. Sometimes she'd barbecue in the backyard. And I say, Great-grandma, I want a rib. She said, boy, go get a plate and wash your hands first. I said, I'm hungry now. I don't need a plate. And she said, you go get a plate and wash your hands at this house. I said, okay, great-grandma. Always making sure we had lots of food in the belly. And then my grandparents, Madia and Hezekiah, they were beautiful, loving, kind people. Oftentimes, they could look at a person and tell you a lot about their past, their present, and their future. Love them with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. They still help me to this day. And then I can always depend on my mama, the most beautiful mama in the history of the universe. Started a Head Start program, a food program, and also coached an all-boys Little League baseball team to the championship of the universe. Always saying, rise and shine, the best person I ever met in my life. Mama, I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. You hear my praise. You hear my praise, praise, praise. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. The best person I ever met in my life. On my father's side, my grandparents, Albert and Alberta Curry, they were pastors. They had 3 churches. They owned 2 gas stations. They also owned 40 acres of land. I was 8 years old, walking down the hallway about 10 o'clock at night in Oakland. I felt somebody touch me on my forehead. She said, what are you doing, young man? Are you going to get some cookies? I said, what are you doing, Grandma? It's 10 o'clock at night. You normally go to bed at 8:30. She said, what are you doing, young man? Going to eat some cookies? I said, cookies are baby crap. What I'm doing, Grandma, I'm going to get my reparations. But it's been a long wait, so I take a couple of cookies. She said, there's something about your voice. I love hearing you speak. And now I'm streaming all over the world on 29 podcast platforms and on TV applications, 4 TV applications. Love my grandparents with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then my beautiful father, former United States Air Force fighter pilot's chief mechanic, always making sure that planes can fly high so we can all stay safe at night, always saying develop your mind to its highest extent. I love my dad with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Then my beautiful brother Todd with that bombastic voice. Sound like thunder and lightning when Todd would speak. Always saying go forward. A voracious reader. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Todd. We love Malcolm X, but we also love a movie called Pulp Fiction. It had Sam Jackson. It had John Travolta, Vin Rames, and Bruce Willis. Before the big fight, like when the Raiders got robbed by the New England Patriots in the Tuck Rule. And Constance and Dain, they know it's true. He said, your butt goes down in the 5th round. Say that! He said, okay, my butt goes down in the 5th round. He said, that stinking sensation you're feeling, well, that's just pride. Messing with you. He said, plug pride. That pride only hurts. It never helps. And I did not use a profanity. I said flub. And he said boxing is filled with a lot of unrealistic, muddly buckets who think that butt gets better with time like fine wine, but it don't. In terms of vinegar, then it do. He said, take this money, and one day you're going to be chilling in the Caribbean. You're going to say Uncle Marsalis is right. But we know that Bruce Willis did not take the fall, and he lost his L.A. privileges. Todd, I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Todd would always say, don't look back, because you don't have much backside. I said, Todd, I love my backside, Todd. But I've been doing more squats so I can have a bigger backside. If that makes sense to you, Todd, I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful daughter, Daisy, the most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. College graduate with 2 degrees with honors in 3.5 years from a major university. Daisy set up the very first interview for Big C Sports Podcast back in the days of Salem Media. It became the first time in the history of the United States of America that NFL Monday Night Football started broadcasting live on the Wall Street Business Network because of 2 black men in the crew. They called us the Dream Team. But then shenanigans set in, and the show went away, but I'm still standing. Daisy, you can be anything you want to be. Always trust God, Isaiah 54:17, that no weapon formed against you will ever prosper. You can be anything you want to be. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful, handsome son, Malcolm, the most handsome son in the history of the universe. College graduate, very smart, erudite, a good man. Malcolm, always trust God. You can be anything you want to be. Isaiah 54:17. I pray that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Always, always know that. Malcolm helped me save trees. I used to always get newspapers and look up stats for a Big C Sports Podcast. You know I have a sneeze button. But Malcolm said, Dad, just Google it. You can Google anything. So I started Googling. And then one day Malcolm said, Dad, you want to see Big C Sports on TV? I said, sure. He said, pick up the remote, aim it at the TV, and say, play Big C Sports. You see a show come up. That's before it was even on the air. And shortly after that, you can find it streaming on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon and Fire TV. Malcolm, you can be anything you want to be. I love you with all of my heart, mind, body, and soul. Always trust God. Isaiah 54:17. That no weapon formed against you will prosper. Always, always trust God. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then Big C, with all that wealth of knowledge over the years, like my great-grandparents coming out of that barn with their church buddies, always saying, you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe. Say, let's get ready to rumble. I love saying welcome to the show. Yes, nominated Big C Sports Podcast. I have no scripts. I have no 3-minute teleprompters. I have no producer in my ear. All I have is this gland in the brain called the pineal gland. The ancients call it the third eye. You see, that's how you talk to God. And that's why I scream so loud, because I really want God to hear me. God, you hear my praise. You hear my praise, praise, praise. I love God with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. As I always tell you on every Big C Sports show, I pay homage to the great Muhammad Ali. Back in the day, there's a man known by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He said, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so pretty, I can't possibly be beat. And every time I listen to Big C Sports, I want to champion reparations at last. Reparations at last. Thank God Almighty. Reparations at last. I love the great Muhammad Ali. There was no fighter greater than Muhammad Ali. As I close every show with Big C Sports Podcast, again, I want to thank my guests today, Constance and Dain Perry. You got to see traces of the trade That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. As I always tell you on every Big C Sports podcast, if you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink. Because mothers against drunk drivers are mad, and fathers against drunk drivers are mad. It's one of the easiest things not to do. You can walk it off, you can sleep it off, but don't do it. If you love someone, don't drink and drive. The life you save may be your own, or someone that you love, or someone who loves you, or someone who's loved by somebody else. And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I love saying with Big C Sports Podcast, I want to pay homage to the inimitable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the 16th President, President Abraham Lincoln. I believe this is what they would tell our great people to do. You got to believe it with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. There's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. No man, woman, or child should ever go through that crap on their own. If somebody's hitting you, only hit you because it made me mad. Call 911. If someone's kicking you, only kicked you because it made me mad. Call 911. If someone's choking you out, only chokes you out because it made me mad. You need more LEADER in your life. LEADER is an acronym for love is the answer. Pick up the phone and call 911. No man, woman, or child should ever go through that crap on their own. That's my story, as I'm sticking with it. As I always tell you, on every Big C Sports podcast, I shout what President Abraham Lincoln said and Dr. Martin Luther King said. They said, what do we want? Reparations. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Reparations. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Reparations. When do we want it? Now. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a super fantastic day.